So, would you believe it or not, this isn't the first podcast I've done with a beer. A lot of my podcasts on a Monday, I do when I've been watching the football and I've got a drink by my side. So, yeah, this isn't the first one. So, welcome to the Hacking Self-Storage podcast. I've got two awesome guests today. I've got Davies and I've got Gavin Shields. And we're going to talk loads of things about self-storage. And we're also going to open it up to you guys as well and see if you've got any questions that we can maybe not me, maybe Dave or Gavin can help you with. So the first talking point, I don't know if anybody's seen recently, but Gavin's been doing a lot on LinkedIn with regards to his site. A lot of people have been seeing the occupancy levels lowering and decreasing. And so what we want to do is...
Perfect. It's going to plan.
As we want to try and see if we can help with sites that have had a decrease in occupancy. So, Gav, if you want to tell us a little bit about your sites and what's been happening recently, just what you've been doing on LinkedIn, and we'll see if we can, as a team, see if we can come up with something.
That was almost a brilliant start.
It's very smooth.
It was a bloody thing, wasn't it? It would have been perfect.
Cool. Well, thanks, Dean. So I have two sites in Northern Ireland, as you know, and so I opened the first one in 2018. I opened the second one about a year and a half ago. And to be completely honest, it has been really easy. It's been unbelievably easy to fill the site. COVID kicked in 6 months after I opened my first site, and it just honestly just seemed so simple. So I spent about 1 hour a month on the business at the moment. And we hit about 70. It was 76% occupied about 6 months ago. My first site, and really doing very well. I put in about £200,000 of cash to open that site. It was kicking out about £80,000 a year, so it was about a 40% return on that on the investment. And life was great. So we opened the second site, and it has taken longer to fill. But then So it was actually about a month and a half ago, we released in Stora. We released this new reporting feature, and I could see the number of move-ins every week. And I just because I wasn't spending enough time looking at the data, I was aware of a lot of move-outs, and I didn't see many bookings coming in, but I could see in a 6-week period I had one booking. And I just thought, oh, Jesus, that's bad, because I used to get like 15 to 20 a month. So I realized something was going wrong. Occupancy was at that point, this was about 3 weeks ago maybe, was down to 55% at that site. And this is
from 75?
From 76, yeah. So 76 down to 55 in about 6 months. And it's an indoor site. It's 12,000 square feet gross, 9,000 of net lettable. It's in a town of 23,000 people. There's a container site with about 80 to 90 containers in it nearby. And there's, in about a 6 or 7 mile radius, there's about 60,000 people. So it's quite a large population, actually, and I'm the only indoor self-storage in that whole area. To be honest, I don't know what the answer is yet, but I suppose I've become aware that it's time to look at what's going on, try and identify what the issues are. So I took a few steps, so I'll just talk you through the few things I've done. Initially, I checked our website, which is all provided by Stora. I just thought, well, what if there's something broken?
Is
what if Stora's broken?
Is it any good?
No Stora customers had a booking for 6 weeks. Luckily the website was fine. And then I said, I'll call the number and see how that goes. And I called the number and somebody answered. And all I wanted to do was make sure it was answered. And then I listened to a few callbacks, and I wasn't happy with the way calls have been being dealt with. I could hear there was a call the day before, and it was about 4 minutes long, and 30 seconds in, I had my head in my hands. A minute in, I was almost in tears, and then 90 seconds in, I just started laughing because it was so bad. I thought it was actually almost like a joke. It was this particular call was bad, but it was. What I decided to do then, I immediately just put all calls to my phone. So I thought I'll just take the calls, and so if I didn't answer within 10 seconds, it went to the call centre. And actually, the call centre has been great. It just I think there's something had maybe gone wrong, or there was maybe somebody had started and it wasn't going well.
Had it been great, or was it just because of COVID situation that it was, even if you was terrible at sales, you still got bookings?
Possibly, yeah. I mean that is possible. I mean the whole process that was working for me, maybe it's about to start working again because it's just demand. One of the things I've always noticed from the very start of listening to your podcasts 3 or 4 years ago was when you talked about a good month, I would have a good month maybe the next month or a month later. If you talked about a bad month, I would have a bad month a month or two later. So I don't know whether the Northern Irish economy is just like a little bit later or something. Like the news just takes a while for the news to get there. Yeah. And then all this talk of recession just hasn't reached there yet. Or I don't know what it is, but I've always noticed that. Now, maybe that's just my head. But because of that, I have a feeling things are going to get good in a month or two because you've talked about how things have been going well the past while.
Yeah, we've definitely improved, yeah.
But I don't know, and so I've changed the phone calls to my phone. I've changed a few things on the website, added a few new offers in, and I last week filmed some drone footage around, which I'm going to use for some promotional stuff. Because I think a lot of people in the towns I'm in don't even know what self-storage is, and they maybe think of a barn or something like that. So I wanted to show people actually inside and the quality, but I'm going to try a lot of stuff. I'm really only getting started, and I'll see. I'm just going to try lots of things at once, probably. So it's not a scientific experiment, which I would prefer to do, but I haven't time. Just going to do piles of stuff.
So, Dave, welcome.
Yeah, hello.
I haven't asked you a question yet.
Well, yeah, but mate, it's you don't have to ask me a question. It's clearly obvious that Gavin needs a consultant. Someone who knows what he's talking about. Do you know anyone? No. Okay. Look, first of all, this business is not easy. You said it was easy. It's not. I think the COVID years, I'm going to call them, right? Everybody's got complacent. I go to different places. I was going to say every day, but 2 days a week. I mean, come on. And people have got complacent. So it's a lesson to everybody. This business is not easy. This business is not, you can make a lot of money in this business, but you've got to work at it. It's like any business. If you don't work at it, it's going to drop off because your competitor will be working harder than you. So that's probably the biggest lesson that I would say that people have got. We've had a good time, we've had record years. They ain't going to last forever.
So Dave, if someone comes to you and says, Dave, I need your help. Occupancy's down. I'm not getting many quotes. Something needs to change. Where would you start? What is a start? Where is a baseline for you?
Data.
What sort of data?
Well, just the first thing is that people assume the first thing that their occupancies are down. They assume that vacates are high because you would look at your dashboard or whatever you're reporting, and you think, oh, well, the vacates are high, but you've got to have a look at the whole suite of data. You've got to sit down, understand the figures, and then work out where the core problem is. It might be vacates, it might be new lets. And until you know that, you can't fix it.
Is there ever a go-to where you think that it normally is this, or they're normally not selling correctly, or the website's wrong, or is there something that most people are doing incorrect?
Well, it's interesting that Gavin said that he listened to his call centre because no one mystery shops themselves.
That is so true.
Right? So I go out every day and people tell me that the competitors are crap. But what I know when I go somewhere is I know how good you are because I've mystery shopped you. Not once, not twice, 3 times, whatever. So I've used your website, I've called your store, I've called your call centre. I know how good you are, and I know how good you have to be because I know how good everybody in the area is, because that's my job, right? So people concentrate on how good they are rather than how good they could be.
Yeah, I don't know if he's here in the audience. He was here, but Ben Holmes from Attic actually sent me a message saying, "Do you do follow-up?" I'm like, so I texted him back saying, "Yeah, of course I do, mate. Why?" He goes, "Because you won't follow up with me." I'm like, "The fuck? What do you mean I ain't followed up?" Sorry. What do you mean I ain't followed up? And so I said, what time, when was it? And it happened to be a fault with our website. For whatever reason, the quote didn't come through. And it wasn't from a Restorer platform, by the way. It hadn't come through to our back end. And so normally we're absolutely hot on our follow-ups. And it just goes to show that I thought we was good enough not to ever do a mystery shop myself.
Well, yeah, but what happens is that you put a process in. I know because I've been there when you've done it.
You've done it.
Right,
You set the process up.
And then you expect it to happen.
Yeah.
And it quite frankly doesn't. So unless you check on a regular basis or you follow up your team, they're not going to do what you want. They're going to do what they want. So, you can have a process, and you can put a process in, but if you don't check it, then no one's going to follow that process. Simple.
Yeah. So with Gavin's sites now, then, where would you start? Obviously, we don't know the data, we don't know the ins and outs, we don't know the specifics. But what would you look at for Gavin's site now? What advice would you give him? Would you say that we need to do more on pay-per-clicks? Would you go down Facebook route?
And don't be sending me a bill after now for this.
It's okay, Trudy would do that. Well, look, you just have to look at the data. I mean, the first thing that you look at is the inquiry numbers. Because, if you haven't got the inquiries, you've not got a chance of doing the business.
Have they gone down, Gavin?
We had, so the number of phone calls, like we do track inquiries, but the number I looked at is just number of phone calls, and they're way down, probably by 2/3. So like whenever I flicked it to my phone, about 2.5 weeks ago, I got a call a day, and I think 3 of them in a week and a half were inquiries. So 3 inquiries in about a week and a half, which is way down. Yeah, so my inquiries are way down.
Yeah. Do you ever look at the Google Analytics and the search term, the amount of people searching for self-storage in your specific town?
Well, what I do search, I do check the name of the towns, put it on self-storage. Check that a lot. I go and Google it. I don't use Google Analytics, I just go onto Google. And my site is number 1 and number 2. So it's number 1, and then the Facebook page is number 2. So like, we're ranking really well. And also, I speak to lots of store customers, and I know that some customers are not as busy as they were, but on the main, people are still doing very well. So I know that my site has done a lot worse. My 2 sites have been faring a lot worse than the average in the UK from the data I've seen. Yeah. So I can't put my finger on it.
Well, look, it's all right being number 1 and number 2 on Portadown self-storage if anybody's searching Portadown self-storage. Now, I don't know Portadown, and I know it's in Ireland, that's about it, right? But the Google Analytics will tell you what, the search terms. So that's where you should be checking, because, maybe you've got a bigger town 2 miles away and people are putting that in. I don't know. But like you say, the comfort of being first and second, or either, is no good if no one's searching it.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing that I think people miss as well in self-storage is that, and to be honest, I've only just started doing this, so we've got the biggest village in the UK right next to Willoughby. And so if you type in that village, we don't come up. How stupid. Why won't we create some sort of SEO and have a page? And it's only because of Store First, because we're going to hopefully open in Mansfield. And Store First aren't even in Mansfield, they're in Nottingham, but they rank number 1 for Mansfield. Yeah. I'm like, why would they do that? They're nicking my customers. I'm like, oh yeah, we need to be doing that. And so many people don't do that. They don't write content on the website to rank for local towns in their vicinity. And you're missing out on massive traffic.
Well, sorry, Gavin. I think 2 things. I'm going to talk tomorrow a bit more about this, but people spend hundreds of thousands. You said 200,000 on a store. People spend obviously a lot more than that, and then they spend £200 a month on marketing.
Yeah, 100%. And it gets me so frustrated when I listen to people and they say, we've got a budget for our pay-per-clicks. And I understand the budget, first of all, because we used to have a budget because our cash flow was terrible. We didn't have enough cash flow. So therefore, when we first started, we couldn't spend as much as we like on pay-per-clicks, but if you know your numbers and you know that for every inquiry, for every move-in we get, it costs us around about £100 on Google, but the lifetime value of a customer is like 900 and something pound. I think it's £987. So why do you stop the spend? But so many people stopped the spend and said, you know what, we've got a budget of £5,000 or £1,000, whatever it may be. But we just said, you know what, we've got no limit whatsoever, because now I'm in a much more fortunate position where I'm not just starting up. We've got 4 sites now, and so therefore we can spend more. So Dave, going back to that then, so you'd first look at the inquiries. What's the next step?
Oh, just look at inquiries, new lets, vacates. They're the 3 things, because if you're getting the inquiries, for instance, if you're getting good inquiries and your new lets are not coming through, there's something wrong with your sales process or your inquiry management. Yeah. And if it's vacates, then that tells you a different story. Why are people vacating? And the answer to that is that you can't do anything about that. So you have to up your marketing, and you have to get the inquiry and the sales process, the new let process working, whatever you do, because it's all about what comes in, not what goes out.
So that's one of the things that I suppose, as we were chatting earlier about this, like if I'm number 1 and number 2, and let's say that the number 1 lever you can pull for more customers is Google Ads, like, is that lever available to me because I'm already number 1 and 2? Do I also need to pay to be at the top of the page? Like, what is the lever I can pull? Because what I've seen is a lot of move-outs and very few inquiries and very few bookings. My feeling is that it's possibly like just an economy thing. Maybe the area, maybe it's maybe it's going to come back, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because you don't take physical inquiries, do you? Or your call centre does.
Yeah.
Well, I think 2 things. You already said your call centre was disappointing. You've said that the calls come to you now. How good are you?
Very good. Yeah,
He's
that's
paying
a good
for
question.
tonight. He's paying for tonight. I knew the answer to that. I mean, look, how good are you? How good is your sales process? Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't know about Portadown, I don't know about the economy of Portadown, but generally, across my clients, so therefore, I think I've got enough clients to understand the industry. Inquiries are flat at worst and are pretty good, so demand is high. I still think demand is high. So the first thing I'd look at is, if it's a new let issue, it's probably how you're handling those calls, and and how your sales process.
So someone like me, who we hide our prices behind an information wall, what sort of conversions should we be hitting then? So say on a normal inquiry over the internet, what would you say that we should be hitting? And then also on the flip side, if you show your prices online, what sort of conversion rate should you be hitting then?
Well, your conversion rate only reflects the inquiries that you log. So, look, there's lots of people out there who tell you they have a 60% conversion rate. They don't. They just don't log their inquiries. Simple.
You blow my mind then, because I'm thinking, holy shit, because we do commission, we do bonuses depending on conversion rates, and I'm thinking, wait a second. Could my staff possibly not put down a quote?
I heard this a couple of weeks ago from a big operator was telling me that they've changed the process because they found that staff were not logging inquiries.
So look,
unless they were pretty sure they were going to close them.
So look, sorry about this, but look, Safe Store and Big Yellow, if you take that, they have 90% of their inquiries online. They're very sophisticated systems, so they log every online inquiry that comes into a central server, and then they send it out to the store. Yeah. So they probably have the most believable conversion rates, given that 90% of their inquiries are online, and they're going to be converting at 28%.
28%?
Yeah.
Wow. That's so. Because for me, if you display your price online, I'm only using American data because Americans show the prices online. They can't believe it. We don't. I mean, that's obviously to Gavin's point. And they say that you should be hitting a 75% conversion rate because two of the main objections, have been hit: the price and the location. And so they're converting at 75%. So what would you say, because Gavin shows his price online, what should he be converting at when he gets a telephone call? Because he's been saying been getting the telephone calls, but he hasn't converted it. And so that maybe says that he's not as good as he thinks at selling.
Well, look, hang on. Everything's bigger in America, right? 75%, bullshit.
Really? What would you say it should be?
Look.
Put that drink down.
Yeah, sorry.
You thought he was going to get a drink then, didn't you?
Look, 75% conversion, does that sound right to you? I mean, look.
This is from a hat lady.
Yeah, but the hat lady, God bless her,
Don't
right?
you dare slag off
No,
the hat.
I love her, and I love all Americans, and I'm a very inclusive person. Right, but it's a different market, and I'm not sure I've ever seen a 75% conversion rate.
But that's when you're showing price online already. So the number one objection already. So if they contact you, then they already know the price. They already know the location.
I don't get that, because if your competitor shows the price online, it's exactly the same across the board. So I just don't get that. I mean, I'm not an expert on America. You've spoken in Vegas, Dean.
I have.
Right? That's an American salute. But I don't know anything about America, so I'm not going to comment.
Yeah, it would only log you down as a quote if you actually contacted that person. So even if it was like 3 or 4 people in that town or that city showing the prices, then they might only contact you because they've seen all the other locations' prices.
Maybe, but 75% conversion just seems far too high. It just seems outrageously high.
So if it's 28% for email inquiries, what would you expect telephone inquiries for then?
60.
60? I'm not very good at online telephone sales then.
I knew that. Well, no, I think 40%. I think if you convert at 40% on a telephone inquiry, I think that's a good level.
Yeah, I would expect a pretty high ratio on that. So we've talked about two things that you'd tell Gavin. Is there anything else that stands out that you would do?
Well, I think we've already had this conversation on LinkedIn. Is that the reason you have to look at the data is that if Gavin now does multiple things, changes his website, changes his pricing, changes his offer, changes his deal, whatever, then you don't know what worked. So where it's very, I can't think of the word, where it's very, you want to go out there and change everything, it's very difficult then to understand which one of those things worked or didn't work. So you could waste a lot of money and waste a lot of effort and waste a lot of time.
So I accept that point, but the issue I have is, to do a test. So let's say you want to do a test. So I make one change every month for the next 12 months, and I'm going to then test, do an A/B test on each of those changes. The thing is, I might go from 10 inquiries a month to 13 inquiries a month, or from 10 to 7. And there's no statistical significance in those numbers. There's no way for me to ever know which of those, because that could just be the economy's becoming better. And so that's why there's no reason for me to do one at a time. Whereas with Stora now, we've just hit 100 customers on Stora in the UK. And we aren't at the point of doing this yet, but we have enough critical mass there. We've probably tens of thousands of website visits a day across all of the sites. At that level, we can actually try things on the storefront and change some buttons, change some flows, and we're going to be doing a lot of this later on this year. And then those things, we can do a proper A/B test, because we probably, not as much as Big Yellow, but we have tons and tons of traffic through all our sites, and so we can do that. And I think that's where we're at now, where I think we can do tests. but not on two little sites. I can't see how I could ever know.
So what have you done
On
your 2 sites? What have you done so far?
so far, I've changed the prices a little bit.
Down.
Yeah.
I knew that.
I've introduced free van hire, which I knew from the past was very popular. That's just from me talking to people on the phone. People always seem to think it was a great thing, and also I'm paying a hire company £30 or £40 a hire, so it's really cheap. And what else have I done? I've turned on some Facebook ads, which have not worked so far, to try and drive a bit of awareness. That's it so far.
Okay, so look. So why would you lower your prices and then increase your costs? So this is my point about doing more than one thing. So look, I'm not going to argue with either, but I think that your issue, and I don't know because I haven't seen the data and I don't know your stores, but look, my experience tells me that it's a demand issue, right? So lowering your price will not increase your demand. You either need storage and you'll pay whatever the price is, or you don't need storage. And certainly, if I was working with Dean today or another client, I would be saying, keep your prices high and introduce the free van hire. If you know the free van hire was popular, but I wouldn't do both because they're both costing you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good point.
100%. We're in. So I've got a newsletter, daily newsletter that I'm going to plug called MrSellStorage.com, and I tell you literally.
How pretentious.
Yeah. And I tell you all my figures, everything. It's just I live for getting behind my business basically. And one of the storage tips that we're coming out with in the next few weeks is about either what's better. Is it discounting or is it doing an offer? And without doubt, I've run through the numbers, and without doubt, it's
well, it's not discounting, is it?
It's not discounting, no. And it actually, Dave, taught me this, but I've actually run through the numbers to make sure you was correct. And it makes...
You doubted me.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to run the numbers. It makes a difference of like 13% per unit size if they come in... 13% per customer on average if they spend like the average lifetime value of a customer. And so I think 13%.
What's the difference between the two? Like, so what the difference in the discounting that you're giving? So it's
so I compared giving 15% discount or 4 weeks half price, because most people when they're worried about their occupancy, they discount more than 15%, maybe 20% or whatever. And so I thought 15% was a fair comparison. I didn't want to go 8 weeks because a lot of people do 4 weeks. So I thought, do you know what, let's do 4 weeks. And so the comparison there is between 4 weeks half price and 15% discount. And by far and away, the offer is better.
Well, you know, like Dean, if ever you've listened to mine and Rennie's operation session on the SSA or the pricing session, I have a saying. I have loads of sayings, you know that, and it's like short-term discounts never forever, right? So you don't drop your price, you do a discount, because you know whether it's 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, at some time that customer pays your full rate. Okay, if you knock £2 off of £20, you lose £2 every week that customer's storing with you. If you knock, £2 off for 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, then it obviously comes to an end and they pay full price. So short-term discounts, never forever.
Yeah, 100%. I'm conscious of the time. We've got loads to get through. One thing that you mentioned, Gavin, was Facebook ads. You did Facebook ads that didn't work. I tested Facebook ads because in previous businesses I've had, I'm all over Facebook ads because Facebook ads are incredible. The targeting you can do, you can get so precise that I was like, Facebook ads for storage, nobody does it. This is a winner. And it just didn't work. And for my money, it's because there needs to be an intent. And if there's an intent, you go to Google. And so if you're doing Facebook ads, you're branding. And there's nothing wrong with branding, but as long as you know that you've got the money to actually do the branding play, where I don't have that spare cash. So all my marketing either goes to local sports teams, charities, etc., and then 85% goes to Google. What's your opinion, Dave? Facebook ads, Google ads? Where would you spend your money?
I have 2 clients that swear by Facebook ads out of 30. So it's got to be Google for me. Look,
Have you seen the data? Does it actually?
They tell me that they get huge new lets from Facebook. I'm not going to argue with them, but for me, you've got to have a good Google marketing campaign.
Yeah, the one thing that works for Facebook without a doubt is pixeling somebody. So when they get a quote, you pixel them and you can retarget them, and so that then your advertisement shows up on. So that's a customer who's been to your website. They've shown an intent. If they've shown an intent, then I don't mind spending money chasing them all over the website. But they have to show an intent first of all. Otherwise, for me, it's just branding. Do you do any pay-per-clicks, Gavin, at the minute?
I turned it off about a year ago, actually, just when we were really full. But that was because.
We figured it out.
Well, hang on. You don't need a consultant.
However,
We've done it.
that was because of that. That's because we're already number 1 and number 2, and so I thought, well, I can probably save some money here and not also be there. But that's the thing. So should I turn that back on? Maybe I should.
Look.
I just haven't done that yet.
If you turn your marketing off.
But this is Google. This is Google pay-per-click ads.
Yeah, but that's your marketing.
It's to be there to be 3
right.
instead of 2.
Okay,
that's
but
why.
look,
So
if you turn your marketing off, you will not see any effect for 2 or 3 months, and then it drops off a cliff. So, Dean, I know that probably from an independent perspective, you spend a lot of money on your marketing.
I spend about 60 grand on pay-per-clicks, at least.
Yep.
Yeah.
And other people spend £500 a month, right? So, but if you turn your marketing off, if you turn your Google spend off, the sad fact is that it will bite you on the bum.
well, I think I'll turn it back on then. I was spending £300.
You haven't already?
I'm going to go and put it back on. See what happens.
Should we take a break for you?
But
We're going to put it back on now.
Should we have a whip round?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It seems so obvious, but that's why I was asking earlier about whether it's worth me paying to be there again. Because maybe the thing is they're not searching for the phrases I'm searching for, so I'm appearing for other stuff.
Well, that's why you need your Google Analytics.
Yeah.
You need to understand,
Yeah.
seriously, right? You do need a consultant, but seriously, you need your Google Analytics. You need to see what the search terms are. And if people are searching ported down self-storage or ported down storage, then that's not the issue. If they're not, then that clearly is the issue. But my advice generally would be don't turn your market off, right? You can tweak it. You can tweak it up. You can tweak it down. When the fish are feeding, you put more in, and when the fish are not feeding, you don't put as much in. But to turn it off is a false economy, and as I said, you just won't see the effect for a period of time, and then suddenly it's too late, it's gone, and you have to start all over again.
My last point or question, I suppose, in your facilities, Gavin, is you mentioned something really interesting. You mentioned the location. You said that maybe it's you, and the drone footage, you said there's not a lot of houses around here, not a lot of chimney pots. Maybe that's the reason. Do you guys think that are you on an industrial estate? Whereabouts are you positioned?
It's a very small industrial estate, about a mile out of the town. It's a really busy road, so a lot of passing traffic. But it's it's kind of an industrial estate surrounded by farms.
Yeah, I think anyone listens to my podcast knows I'm all about locations. I am anal about locations for me because you're future-proofing yourself against what's going to happen. Not now, but in 10 years' time. Because now, I do believe a self-storage can work back in an industrial estate, no problem. But in America, masterminds in America for self-storage, and all they talk about is location. And they're like 10 years ahead of us. And so if I want a self-storage that's going to be profitable in 10 years' time, I want to future-proof myself by making sure that we can't be, you said the term, when you was working with me, outpositioned. You went down to my Willoughby site and you said, nobody can outposition you. So you are safe, secure for the future because you can't be outpositioned. Is that something that you look at, Dave, when you're analysing new sites, the location? Would you advise somebody to start a self-storage in an industrial estate, no passing trade, no passing cars?
That's an easy one. No. I mean, look, we can't all afford big yellow or safe store locations, yeah? You know, that's the fact. And you can't, right? But that doesn't
100%.
mean that we can't find great locations, as you say, that can't be outpositioned. So, you know, if you don't want to be at the back of the trading estate because someone could come on the front, you want to be at the front of the trading estate. It might not be super prime, but the biggest issue you've got is being outpositioned by a competitor. So, you know, there's loads of considerations. You know, Dean, we've looked at many sites today, many sites this, you know, our time together. You've dropped
Fucking no-brainer, mate. Fucking no-brainer.
I've never said fucking no-brainer. But anyway, you've dropped me off at many train stations late, if you remember. We ran out of fuel.
I ran out of petrol.
We ran out of fuel once. But anyway, enough about that. But the point is, look.
I actually forgot my microphone today as well. Gavin said to me, make sure you bring your microphone. I'm like, when I got here, I was like, I'm so sorry, mate. I forgot my microphone.
And we probably should tell him we had a planning meeting at 4:30, didn't he? He didn't have a plan, but never mind. But
I wing it.
But the point is, look, don't be outpositioned. So we can't afford super prime, but don't ever put yourself in a position where you can be outpositioned.
And I think it's a good point. Whenever I took that second site, it was quite early on actually. So we were speaking at the time about this kind of strategy around finding smaller towns and opening up sites in smaller towns. And
you give me that strategy, yeah.
Well,
I remember the funk.
And we chatted quite a bit about it quite a lot. And this second site, I opened it knowing that it was a bit of a risk, and it's quite a small town. There really isn't very much warehousing there at all, so it was going to be very hard to find a site. And I actually thought. I realised it wasn't a good location, but I thought if this can work here, if I can take this on, and I knew it was a risk, and if this can work, then this can work in almost any. There was 21 towns in Northern Ireland I'd identified with the right population size, so I kind of picked one of the harder ones early on as the second site, because I thought if this can work, I can roll it out everywhere.
I probably picked an easy one.
Well, yeah, but
my first one was quite easy. And the second one, I thought, well, I'll go for a hard one. And by the way, it's still filling up. It's just very slow. And it's profitable. It was profitable after a couple of months because we had somebody move into one of the big spaces there. It's just much slower to fill. So it might still be a great one in the end. But you're right, though, we could be outpositioned eventually. That's a risk that I had to take.
But I think, look, as I said before, we most people in this room can't afford safe store, big yellow locations, and I think that smaller stores in smaller towns is where the opportunities are.
100%.
Right, but because if you get the right position in that smaller town, no one's coming in.
Yeah.
Right, because they can't better your position. If you get a secondary position, I don't know, 25,000, 30,000 population. You know, we've looked at loads of towns together. You've got to have a prime location, and then people will not come in and compete with you. If you're in secondary position, they will outposition you and do well.
Yeah, this goes on to the next point about unmanned or manned. And we went to, did I take you, Dave, to that Chorley site?
You did.
Chorley, by the way, I keep on checking Rightmove and Zoopla and everything. Zoopla? Whatever the other one is. And I'm looking for a location all the time. 4,000 square foot, next to, was it 5,000 square foot? Next door to McDonald's. Absolutely incredible. And again, negotiations went wrong. As soon as he knew us, we put containers in the yard, he wanted more money. But I believe now, with the manless sites, with no key technology, I believe that you can open a manless site now, and it opens up to so many more opportunities. So you can open a 4,000 square foot site in maybe a 10 to 15,000 population town, where before, if you had to man it, you couldn't do. And so there's so many towns out there right now I was just talking to somebody before, a 31,000 population, no self-storage. And if you can just open a site in there
where was it? We'll do it.
Well, there's one in Ashington, just near Newcastle. They've got no self-storage. It's a growing town as well. It's incredible. There's opportunities everywhere. And I keep every time Gavin's on stage and I listen to him and he's talking about it. I'm like, I text him afterwards saying, Gavin, shut the hell up. This is what we're doing. But I just think that with manless sites, it opens up the opportunity now to have a small site with limited square footage, but also limited square footage give limited risk. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to argue against manless sites. I think the key to self-storage is how you handle the inquiry, not whether your site is manned or not. So you have you have a great team who handle your inquiries for you. You had a call centre who were maybe not handling the inquiries so well. So I've got clients with manned sites, I've got clients with manless sites. But the key is how you deal with the inquiry. So just because it's manless doesn't mean that you don't have to answer the phone and deal with the inquiry.
100%, yeah.
There's no such thing as automated self-storage in my mind, right? And not something I've seen work on a scale. So whether you're manless or whether you're staffed, you've got to have somebody with a great sales process handling your inquiries.
Yeah. Gavin, you see loads of data because obviously from Stora. What do you see with a manless versus manned? Is any correlation? Can you see any stepping stones to success, or do you see anything there? What makes you decide what you would do next if you open a third site?
Well, I think one of the things that's definitely changed since I started coming to these conferences 4 years ago is there's widespread acknowledgement that you can set up and run an unmanned or remotely managed site. They've become way more popular here, and I think in the US, so I've been in the US quite a bit recently as well, and there's much more acknowledgement there that that's the future of self-storage. So while I completely agree in terms of handling inbound demand, you want to make sure you give the customer the optimal experience. Yep. And we've talked a lot about how that optimal experience is on the phone. But if I look at the data from my bookings over the past 3 years, a lot of that optimal experience isn't on the phone. It's actually what happens on the website and how you handle that and how you handle the move in and everything else. So one of the big changes now I think that I've seen is the sort of general adoption of remotely managed sites are the way forward. And I think as we move forward over the next 5 or 10 years, you'll see more and more of the big chains who might have 5 or 10 staff maybe on site or something like that. I think there'll be financial pressure over time for that 5 to drop to 3 or 2 over time. I think that's coming eventually. And I think one of the things I think we'll see more of, and I say this while also acknowledging in the past 2 months my site has had not one, I said 2 bookings, and nowhere near enough. But at the same time, I look across Stora, and everybody's getting plenty of bookings. But what I think we will see more of is, and it's just bound to happen, the move to online. A greater and greater percentage of customers coming into self-storage in the next 10 years are not going to phone. Now that doesn't mean there'll always be people phoning, but it's going to happen, and so that's something that I'm much more focused on.
Gavin,
yes.
I'm sorry to say, I have to agree with you, right? Jesus shit. So look, my kids, if I ring my kids, I get a text back saying, Dad, what do you want? Right? Does everybody get that? Yeah, right. So look, whilst we're not there now, my kids are going to be the self-storage users in the future. So whilst I'm an old FUD, right, and I don't think we're quite there yet. Of course, we're going to be there in the future because my kids don't talk. My kids text, TikTok, Instagram, whatever those things are. I have no bloody idea, right? But the point is that, I think that automation, of course, it's coming.
But it's going to take some time, though, because if the average user in the UK for self-storage is between 40 and 60, then you've got a hell of a long time.
Absolutely,
before.
but it's coming. It's coming.
100% it's
But the
coming,
point is, you cannot. I don't believe that you can open a totally automated store. Even you've got a call center, however good or bad they are, right? I don't think you can open an automated self-storage center in the UK at the moment. In America, I'm sure you can, because they're 30 years ahead of us, and we're 30 years ahead of Europe.
Everybody
right?
I speak to in America, they've still got call centers, they still get inbound
Of course,
calls.
of course, because you then control the destiny of the customer.
Yeah, in America, they're stating now at the minute, and I'm only using, I don't know, basically AJ Osborne's mastermind. He's saying that 50, and you've got to question the results because it's so split 50-50, you know, it's a round number. But he's saying 50% of his inquiries move in online without talking to him. 50% need somebody else.
Right, so you've got a call centre in Willoughby. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's a storage centre, but you've got 3 people there answering the phone for 4 sites. That's a call centre, right? And you know,
Less than 10% move in without talking to
right,
us.
we're nowhere near 50%, right? I think the best client I've got with a store client is he reckons he moves in about 15% of his clients without talking to them. But he's like,
Really?
he's absolutely on his own. Most people, it's like not very many, maybe 5%. But I'm sure that will grow. It will grow.
Yeah.
It will definitely grow. But you still need to talk to your customer at the moment because they're not educated.
Gavin, would you ever put prices behind an information wall?
Oh, Dean.
Oh, this is
Would
the
I
bit I've
hide
been
prices?
waiting for.
Well, put it this way, I'm not closed to the idea that in some geographies, depending on the competitive environment, it may make sense.
Around us, it's so competitive.
It may make
around
sense to
for
high
us.
prices. I think there's advantages to that. If people are used to phoning around for prices, and they see you, I suppose your competitors could potentially take advantage of that openness around the price. But on the other hand, I think there's an advantage as well. So I think if you're online looking for self-storage, and if you're the sort of person who doesn't want to have to phone somebody, and is of a generation that does text their dad back and say, "What do you want, Dad?" I think you're going to get those people are going to book with you because they don't want to have to call some other site. So I think there's pros and cons. And to be completely honest, I don't think anyone has the data, and I don't have the data to say which is better. And I don't think there's ever going to be a final answer. But I do, and we've got plans for this year to really start to really focus on this question: what's the best way to sell self-storage online? What's the best way to facilitate that? And ultimately make sure our customers who are using Stora are maximising their sales and maximising their conversions. And we're open to anything being the case. So we are going to work and think, what if it is better to hide prices? What's the best way to build a system around that? And then we're going to work and do some of that work to make sure that we can do it. And then we'll also say, well, what if it's better to book online and to be really open with prices? And we're going to try and optimise that more than we already have. And then hopefully over time we can actually run tests, and we might be able to eventually say, on average, it's better to do A or B. But in certain geographies where there's more competition, it's better to hide prices, maybe. For now, I think that answer will also change over time, because I think eventually transparency will win out. Customers, your end customer has a better experience ultimately if they can just get the answer they want.
Yeah, but okay,
so if you start
just a
from
little
that
pushback.
perspective, yeah.
So most people in the UK have never used self-storage before. They don't really know what size they need. And so for the optimum customer journey, then we need to educate them to the sizes, because they have, I mean, even like I've been in self-storage now 12 years, and so I wouldn't know because I'm not on the ground floor anymore, and so I would struggle to know what would fit in a 160 square foot room, and so I would need someone to talk to me. And if there's nobody I can talk to, there's no telephone number, there's nobody there to assist me, then I don't think that is a good customer journey. I think that's more confusing for me.
I completely agree. And for those people, you should have a phone number and you should have somebody on the phone answering those questions. 100%. As long as those people exist and you want them to be your customers, you have to answer those questions. So that's what we don't do well enough in my self-storage business. We haven't been doing that well enough, and that's what we want to do better. But there's a portion of those people there's a portion of people who I think there's a failure for the people who go to your website. If they don't understand that quickly enough, it's a failure of the website. It's a failure of
Yeah, I take that
messaging
point, yeah.
there. Like, for example, that drone video footage that I filmed around my site, that to me, if I have never been in self-storage centre, that within 5 seconds you know what it's like inside. And our website could automatically run that video. So when you load it up, if you go to the website, it could run that video. You can flick through a couple of pictures, a couple more videos, and you should know, you should get that answer within 10 seconds of the website. You should know what self-storage is and what size of unit you need. And if you don't, it's a failure of the website. But there's always going to be people, and having taken these calls, people ring me and say, I'd like a price. And the prices are on our site, so they haven't even been to the site. They've just gone probably onto Google, self-storage, put it down, or whatever it is, I just call the number. So for those people, you have to answer the phone, you have to take the time to explain it. So I think you have to do both. I don't at all think you should just kind of give up on one. I don't want to talk for too long about this, but there is also, there's a guy in Australia I know who's launched a new chain there. He's one of the biggest investors in self-storage, even here in the UK. He's building a storage chain there that is unmanned, huge sites. He has a QR code at the gate. People turn up, take a picture, book online, and move in. And we started speaking about 3 years ago, and his goal was, I want people to turn up and move in within 90 seconds, just from the gate, and not have to call a member of staff. And he's convinced that that's the way forward. And I think he knows what he's doing. But then in Australia, it's also a bit more like America. People know the industry and don't have the same questions.
Australia is the second biggest market in the world, right? So I have a daughter who lives in Australia. You won't be surprised to know that I spent this day in Brisbane, mystery shopping. I don't know, Trudy was on the beach or something, having lunch with the girls or something, right? The service levels were shocking, right? So it's no further advanced than us. But look, prices online, prices offline. I think it's definitely, if it's my business, I'm having prices hidden because I want to talk to the customer, because I believe that the customer doesn't know enough about self-storage yet. However, I have, over my 30, 40 clients or whatever, I've got clients who price online because they don't want to talk. They don't want to talk they don't want to be involved. They just want to fill their unit and make some money. And it works, I believe, slightly slower.
I do too.
Right. So, look, it's horses for courses. I'm definitely into prices hidden. Get the detail, ring the customer back, follow up the inquiry, all that. But, as I said earlier, in another 10 years when my daughter's 40, it may be different. So, there's no right answer. But it's just moving with the times. And I think that you have to give your customers the choice of the way that they contact with you, price or no price. And because I just don't think that they've got the confidence to buy storage like they would buy a telly or, I don't know, a deep fat fryer or something.
Hotel room, I think, is quite a good comparable.
Yeah. We just they don't have the confidence. They know what a 2-star hotel is. They know what a 3-star.
Exactly, the starring system.
But they don't know you don't know what fits in 160. Thank goodness you got Angela. But
And James.
Yeah, and James, yeah, of course. You mentioned James. Sorry, James. But the point is that the customer just hasn't got the confidence at the moment.
Yeah, we've tested both, and we keep testing and testing and testing to make sure that, because ultimately I want to display prices because it's going to save me money in the future expansions for my staffing costs. And so I've got skin in the game, but I've got skin in the game of I want to show prices, but everything that we've seen so far, it suggests to me, I know that Gavin probably disagrees, but showing prices behind an information wall so we can contact the customer and educate them is better. However, I know Gavin's point is going to be, well, it's not a scientific evidence. It's not a scientific test because it's not A versus B. It's A in December versus B in February. It's completely different months, and he's 100% correct. I can't categorically say, but from what we've seen and the feel from me and the customer and the rest of the team, we feel we've got more control if we speak to the customers.
Look, I'm not going to disagree with that. I think speaking to the customer gives you the best opportunity, but also, if you don't want to speak to the customers, I think that you can enhance the revenue from your space, your building, your warehouse, before it was doing anything else. So when it was a warehouse, it was making X. If you turn it into self-storage and you put your prices online, you don't talk to the customers, I think over time you're still going to make more money out of that space.
Yeah, I've seen Dave looking at his watch because he's got dinner plans.
Josh
I was
is
thinking that we're probably getting boring now.
And so
just now.
And so my last point before we open up to any questions that you guys have is revenue management. Dave, this is like your passion project. Talk to us about revenue management. What mistakes do people make?
That they think inquiries has something to do with price increases.
And so, even given Gavin's situation now, would you still do price increases?
Absolutely. You know the answer to that. So look, price increases to existing customers have nothing to do with occupancy or inquiries. Simple. It only has to do with you increasing your revenue or not.
Yeah. And just to be clear, me and Dave started working together maybe 4 years ago, was it something like that? And he came to me and said, "Are you doing price increases?" I said, "Yep, doing price increases." And he had a look.
You weren't though, were you?
No, I was. No,
No, you weren't.
I was doing price increase. Do you know why?
Were
'Cause
you?
Jim Ross from the self-storage show, he consulted with me and he goes, "Why are you doing price increases?" And don't get me wrong, it's only 3 months before, but you said to me that people don't move out from a price increase, and I was like, what a load of rubbish this is. Of course people are going to move out. And so he goes, well, test it. So he gave me this spreadsheet and said, fill it in every single time, you do a price increase, and then look at when they move out. And
it's great. No, love it. Hang on. Let's have a big build up to this.
He was 100% correct. And people don't move out as much as you believe for price increases. The last time, and so now we have the data running in the background, and so I only get alerted if it hits over a certain percentage. But it's never been over 5%. 5% of our inquiries, if any more than 5% of our price increases, if over 5% of them move out within 3 months, I get alerted to it, and it just doesn't happen. But so many people think that it's connected to your move outs, your price increases, but it's really not. So we have a data point on the first month, the second point, and the third point we call par. We think, well, if they move out at that point, they could have been moving out anyway, and they just don't move out. So the biggest, and I was on the phone with you maybe 2.5 weeks ago, and I thought I was aggressive with price increases, and you was telling me one of your clients is averaging a 13.7% increase or something like that. I was like, holy shit, we do 12%, and I think I've been a bit unfair. And so, can you talk to everybody about price increases and how important it is to do price increases?
Well, first of all, we have the Lothians in the room from Len Lothian in Scotland. We track move-outs 4 weeks and 8 weeks after price increases, and the percentages are 0. In fact, last April we had 10%. So we've got like 2 years worth of data, and it's like 0 or 1, 2%. Suddenly it rose for 1 month, and then it's back to normal. So who knows? But it's tracking your data, right? So it is a bit of a ball ache having to manually, maybe, we have to check. These are the people that we price increased. How many moved out within 4 weeks? How many moved out within 8 weeks? It's a ball ache, and you have to keep it up. It's no good doing it for 1 month. You have to do it for like 12 months or 24 months or whatever, because that data is absolutely priceless. But you know me, love a price increase. And the great thing with price increases, you only have to deal with the people who complain. So if you put up 200 prices, Dean, at 12%, how many complaints do you get?
We get less than 5% complaints, but then you taught me that we just, I tell you what, we'll look into it for you. We'll speak to the manager, And so you make a big song, and you make almost like a play of it, and then you ring them back and you say, look, we've spoken to the manager. We don't normally do this, however, because you've been a good payer, etc. We're not gonna give you the full 12% increase. We'll make sure it's 6%, and then the customer's over the moon. You've kept the customer, and you've made sure that you've invested in that relationship. That rapport is better.
Well, let me tell you today what happened to me this morning. I received my car insurance increase this morning. This is a true story, sorry to bore you.
Is this insurance?
Yeah, car insurance. And the car insurance, they have to tell you what you paid last year on your insurance. So I got this thing, and it said your car insurance is 713 quid. It's quite a fast car. Right, 713, and last year it was 634. And I worked it out as 12%. So, it's inflation-ish, isn't it? But, you know me, I'm a shopper arounder. So
you don't like price increases?
Oh, not for me. No. I love them because it allows me to fund my wife. But I'm not paying. I mean, I didn't say I loved price increases that much. But okay, so 712 quid or something. 634, 12% increase. So I'm a shop arounder, so I ring up my insurance company. And they say, well, hello, how can I help you? And they said, oh, would you like to renew? I said, no, not unless we can do something about the price. So I've got this price, and I wondered if you could help me before, I go and compare the market or whatever. And they said, oh, yes, Mr. Davies, certainly we can help you. So they said, look, it's £713. Have you had a quote from somewhere else? I said, oh, yes. I've had a quote from Saga. And they said, oh, how much was that? I said, £593. Had I had a quote from Saga? Put your hands up if you think I had a quote from Saga. Exactly. I did not have a quote from Saga. I made it up. £593. I have no idea where £593 came from. It just came. And they said, right, Mr. Davies, let me have a look at that. And then they came back and they said, we're just going to talk to our supervisor. They came back and they said, we could do £592, Mr. Davies. I said, well, I've got my credit card here, thank you. Right, so I'd saved 9% on last year and 21% on the deal. Bullshit, isn't it? Right.
So some practical advice from people out there. Really quickly then, what percent would you increase, and how often would you do it?
Right, so I would increase a minimum of 12% at the moment, right? And if anybody complains, I would offer them 6%.
Yeah. And
right,
how often would you do it when they move in? So if they move in the third month, when would you start the price increases?
So they move in, I would normally expect a price increase at month 6, although I do have a client who does it at month 3.
I do it month 3, but I know you're talking about because he made me do it month 3.
He did, yeah. But month 6, I think month 6 is fine. You can do it because most people don't do it for a year. So I think if I can get you to 6 months, then I'm going to pay my invoice.
How many months after that?
So I go 6 months, 9 months, and then 12 months after that.
So 6 months in, wait 9, and then every 12
yeah,
months.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you're bold enough and brass enough, and I don't think you have to be very bold, do it at the end of your discount period, because you're going to catch more people before they move out. That's what my thought is.
We do it 3 months after they move out, then every 9 months. Sorry, after the move in, yeah. and then we do it 9 months rolling after that.
Okay, well that's probably as aggressive as anybody does it.
Yeah. All right. Before we wrap up, then, has anybody got any questions? We all know how expensive David Davies is for his time. So while you've got him here, you might as well ask him some questions.
I will be wanting invoices.
So if anybody's got a question about anything to do with self-storage, hit Dave up, or me, or Gavin.
What's your views on dynamic pricing? That's different to price increases, isn't it?
Well, that's price list.
Well, dynamic pricing is where it fluctuates with demand.
Yeah, that's price list
Price split.
rather than price increase. What's your view on dynamic pricing?
If it ain't bust, don't try and fix it.
Well, look, I think dynamic pricing is a good thing, but I think it's overhyped because I think what all you're doing is if you've got a unit at 50%, it's one price, and if you've got a unit at 85%, a unit size, it's another price. I think it's worth having because I think that in this business every penny really does count because it's reoccurring. So if you've got a dynamic pricing model, then great. If you haven't, you can make your own. I think it's dead simple actually, and I think you should be charging more for a unit size that's 90% occupied than one that's 50% occupied. So I'm in favour of dynamic pricing.
I really love dynamic pricing because why wouldn't you? It's like an airline. If you go to book a flight, you might be looking at this hotel, this holiday, and all of a sudden you come back 2 days later, it's gone up again because the occupancy on the plane there's less and less and less. So why wouldn't you charge more? It's supply and demand. So we always charge more. We've just done Beverley. My Beverley site is 92% full. Now on our units now, they're like 15% dearer than there was this time last week. Why? Because we've got less available. So if you want to move in, we're going to charge you more because we've got the opportunity to charge you extra because our occupancy states that we don't have that many units available. But not only that as well, I would actually we charge people more if you're closer to the lift, if you're closer to the entrance, because it's convenience. People will pay for convenience, and it's just that little extra £2-3 a week that can make a massive difference in your revenue management.
Yeah, two things. One, the unheralded, can't even bloody say it. The thing that people don't talk about.
So much wine left then?
The thing that don't talk about, too many wines, about dynamic pricing is that you're charging more for your 50 because it's 90% full, but you can maybe put the customer into a 60 or the customer into a 75 for a smaller differential, so you can actually fill the unit size you want. I think what you're talking about people, units near lifts, I call them premium units, and so that allows you to always show your smaller price, your lowest price, which is the 25 at the back, but you can then offer the customer the 25 near the lift for maybe £1 or 50p a week more. And again, it doesn't sound a lot, but when it's reoccurring, it's massive on your bottom line.
Yeah, and what we don't do is we don't want to confuse the customer, because if you give the customer too many choices, then they get confused, and a confused customer doesn't buy. So we don't say, like, we've got a premium room at this price and a normal standard room at this price. We just list them all the same, and when a customer comes in, we always say, oh, by the way, you can have a premium room and a VIP room, and the difference is it's close to the lift, and it's £2 a week more or whatever. And so we tell the customer when they're coming in, and they can upgrade rather than show them on.
Yeah, I do agree with that. But I think that you can, on the website, just like you do with EasyJet or something like that, on a phone or hotel that you mentioned, you can say 50 square foot basic, 50 square foot premium. You can actually get people to upgrade on the website.
I think there's three ways. I think ultimately you're talking about here is optimizing the revenue. There's three ways to do it. One is price increases on existing customers. One is what's typically called dynamic pricing, which is affecting your price on the way in. And then the other one, which Dean, you've touched on there, is are there upsells at the point of sale? And I actually think there's for dynamic pricing, one of the things that this industry hasn't done well yet at all is because it's dynamic pricing based off supply. So you can alter the price based off, how many 50s do you have? That's pretty simple. That's something we're looking at Stora at the moment. That's pretty straightforward. So that's supply-based dynamic pricing. But then there's all sorts of other factors like with dynamic pricing. If you go to a hotel website, like for example, they will know where you are geographically. Are you in a wealthy location? What is your website traffic, your website history? are you likely to pay more? For example, are you using an Amex card or are you using a prepaid debit card? There's all sorts of different things. For example, let's say you have a customer in your self-storage facility who's using a corporate Amex card. They're not going to be price sensitive at all, so why not give them a 30% price increase, for example? Versus a prepaid direct debit customer, they might be pretty sensitive to a 10% price increase. So that person only should receive 5%. So there's all sorts of dynamic pricing stuff that you could be doing beyond the supply stuff, which I think is going to be really interesting in the future, that I am looking forward to working on. And you'll see that with the hotels and flights and flight companies. And then for the idea of upsells, showing, we've just released sitemaps a couple of months ago, letting people pick the actual unit and showing the same way you pick your seat on EasyJet, which is what I normally fly with. You pay 30 quid if you want to sit in the front row for a half-hour flight. It's crazy, but some people will pay it. And there, just as you said, Dave, it's free. It's kind of free money, so you should really be doing that. And my point was going to be, because I've repeated most of the stuff you just said, is I think actually a web experience over time is actually able to handle the complexity of all that much more easily than somebody on the phone trying to explain prices as a person. So if you build a great web experience to manage all of that complexity, I think it will actually convert better because it'll be more straightforward. But I think we're a few years away from that.
Yeah, look, and I'm going to give you a plug at the moment because you know that I do have a number of my clients on store because I send them to you because I believe that you're the best system for them for various reasons. And I think that in the main, they're smaller, independent, less experienced operators. And for me, if you can give them, if you can automatically raise their price, for instance, because they've gone beyond a 75% threshold or lower their price because they're 30%, then that just enhances the product. So for me, data-driven information from my independent clients is hugely welcome.
Just one thing about optimising revenue, what you mentioned. You mentioned about the credit cards, if it's a company credit card, etc. In America, what they do is they do price increases depending on your location. So if you're located close to the site, they will give you a smaller increase than if you are located away from the site.
That's the wrong way round, isn't it?
Well, maybe you can't be bothered driving over to get your stuff.
Yeah, because they know it's a bigger problem for you to do it. And I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be amazing. I can earn so much more money because I'll do it on postcodes. And I'm like, yeah, but that's a bit icky. I personally feel comfortable doing that for whatever reason. I thought, argh.
Do you know Hong Kong was locked down during COVID? And I was chatting to a Hong Kong operator and they sent everybody an email at the start of COVID. And they checked they checked the IP address of where they opened the email. You know where this is going. And if they were out of Hong Kong and they couldn't get back,
100% increase.
There was a much higher increase.
What's an IP address?
So, have we got any more questions from anybody?
Oh God, can we go home?
Yes.
I'm starving.
Hopefully, last question. Just you said the premium on let's say close to the elevator, stuff like that. What about a premium in terms of access times? So you have 8 to 1800 for normal customers and 24/7 you pay a premium?
Yeah, look, of course. One, I don't think you want people 24/7 if you're inside, but equally so, I think that people get normal hours. Even if you have extended hours, you could charge 50p a week or £1 a week. I mean, really, I'm talking small money here. And if you want 24 hours, you can. If you want 24 hours, you can say, well, that's £2.50 a week. If you don't want it, you say that's £20 a week, right? So, yeah, I think that it's definitely another way in very small, 50p's, but they're recurring income, and that's where you make the extra money.
We tried it when we first opened. We charged £10 per week for, £10 a month for 24-hour access, and we had 2 out of maybe 60 or 70 people use it. And so in the end, I thought, you know what? I can gain more out of marketing this as free 24-hour access than I can from people upselling people. And so I use it as as a hook, as something that a USP that I like Armadillo, they can't do that because of what I don't know what the reason is on their units, but they can't offer 24-hour access, and so we can. And people don't use it because we looked at the log and we know that people don't use it. But also, if they do use it, you might want to take a closer look at the people who are using it at 3 o'clock in the morning all the time. But majority of times, people don't actually use it. But it's a great USP for me to sell it on the website.
Look, you can market 24 hours access, but you don't have to give it.
Anybody else for more questions?
Maybe one or two more. We're
I
going
was
to
going to
finish
say, should we make it the last
by
two?
8. We've another 5 minutes or so.
Luckily, it's
It wasn't so much a question, you'd be pleased to hear. It was more observation. So you were talking about, Gavin was talking about having maybe 5 inquiries or whatever it was in a month. So say we have 100 inquiries in a month. We know that only 5% of them will phone us, but we still phone 100 inquiries, whereas you're only phoning 5 because we've got the customer's telephone number. I'm not suggesting 100 of them will answer, but we are phoning 100 back. So it's not the inbound call that's important, it's our call outbound. And I think that's what you're missing.
I've never heard it put like that, and that sums it up perfectly. And don't forget text as well. Once you get a number, like 90% of texts are opened. Emails is only like less than 20%. Telephone calls, God knows how many. But so yeah, you've got to utilise the customer's details. I think that's a great.
I think it's 2-1 to us, Gavin.
What do you think, Gavin? Even his microphones give up on him.
Well, I mean, if the numbers were like that, I would obviously high my prices to get the 100 leads. I would argue that my website traffic is down quite a bit, and it's probably more like maybe 5 versus 10. So I think it's all pros and cons. The way I see it is, I want to focus on building the best customer experience. What's the best customer experience? For me, it's giving them the information they need to make a quick decision. And get them through the funnel as quickly as they possibly can with a minimal of distractions, even if Davies going to grab your microphone. And
he wants to go to dinner and look, he's talking about
so that, I suppose that's where I'm coming from, and it may be that if I did that, maybe I would get more customers, and so I may well try it. I don't think the numbers would be 5 versus 100, but I'm open to the idea that potentially at maybe at tougher times, especially when it's quieter, maybe it is a better approach, but. I don't have the data to back any of that up.
Have you ever thought about doing 1 in one store and 1 in the other store?
To be honest, as I said, I spent about an hour a month on this until a few weeks ago, so no, but yeah, it's probably it could be an interesting trial.
I mean, look, Douglas, you make an excellent point there about the follow-up, and I'm going to be talking tomorrow about inquiry management and follow-up. And I think it's, it ranks in my top 5 tips. So come along and listen. No, sorry. I think that, as we said earlier, there will definitely come a time when people are confident to book online without talking to somebody. It's just not right now. But having said that, as I said before, I think transparent pricing or hiding it behind the gathering of information. Right at this moment, I think it's horses for courses. What do you want from your business? You don't want to be picking up 20 phone calls a day or 20 phone calls a week, so it suits you. So I think it's very much each individual operator deciding how involved they want to be in selling their space.
I love this. I could talk some stories all day.
We gotta go. I'm hungry.
Did we say we've got one more time? One more.
If there's anyone.
One more. That's one more.
Hi guys, good chat. This one's for Dean mainly. I was just wondering, is that working? I was just wondering, using Space Manager on your old stores and Store Up on your new ones, how are you getting on using both side by side?
Oh, difficult.
And are you considering moving over to Store Up, moving the old sites over to Store Up, or is it just the new ones that it makes sense where they're unmanned?
Yeah. I don't think we've got time for this.
We're all listening. Hang on. I think my mic's run out.
No, do you know what? I really, I was talking to Stephen the other day from the Sora team, and he was showing me all the improvements that Stora's got. And I have 100% no doubt that Stora will be the go-to platform over. And don't forget, Stora's just come into the industry over the last 2 years, and Space Manager, etc., have been around for ages. And the one massive advantage that Stora has over them, apart from the payment, you can do payments online, is the look and feel of the platform. It looks beautiful. It's easy to see in a glance. Where if you look at, and I'm sorry for the Space Manager report people here, but if you look at Space Manager reports, they're so old-fashioned, and you've got to. It's like an old DOS working computer. It's just it's not. You can't see what you want to see in a quick look. However, saying that, the reports that I like, if I'm being completely objective, the reports that I like, Stora don't yet have. However, Stephen was asking me, they went through everything with me and says, listen, what do you need? What do you want? And I showed them all the reports that we get from Space Manager that I want. And by the way, whatever you guys get from Space Manager, I get more because I've actually paid them to build me. I must have spent £14,000 in the last year, because then I always say that if we're going to do it once, then we might as well automate. If we're going to do more than once, we might as well automate it and save time. And so we paid them to do these reports that I get every single day. In the morning, we get reports. As soon as the computer switched on, I get a report. As soon as the computer switched off at evening, I get reports from every single location. And so we've invested in it. And so it's not. And so Space Manager wouldn't have given me that unless I've asked for it. And so to answer your question, if I was setting up now a manless site, a one-man band, I would 100% use Stora. If I had 5 or 6 locations, I would probably still use Space Manager. And I think you probably, because I think you said to me that you was advising somebody who had like 5 or 6 sites, and you were saying that it wasn't quite right for that person in that situation. I feel like I've handled that situation.
Hang on, look, we had a discussion on the phone. I was in Edinburgh Airport, and you said to me, how do I get bigger companies? And look, the real issue is that changing your software platform when you've got 10 stores or 20 stores or whatever, changing your software platform, that's a big gamble, right? But I recommend Stora to the clients I believe, my clients that I believe Stora is the right platform for, and there's some I believe it's right for, and there's some I don't at this moment. But you're right, it's all about the data. It's having the reports that we can, Stora's got so many great attributes, and I know that you're working hard on it. It's getting those reports now. I want it to tell me what I need to know so I can make the decisions that I can make using Space Manager.
But one advice I give to Gavin, and Gavin would never want my advice anyway, but because I used to have a software company in the betting industry, and my problem is that he who shouted loudest, I did the improvements for, and it was ridiculous. You should not do improvements just for one person. You should do the improvements for the majority of people that's going to benefit from it.
And you know that we've used some of your Space Manager development for one of my clients. Thank you. But equally so, same thing. This is a very well-known system supplier, and they don't share that amongst their audience. They build it for you because you pay for it, but I want them to share it.
I wouldn't have a problem with it because I don't mind paying for it and then give it to anybody who wants it. I'll give the plug-in for anybody, and so I don't mind if they market it all because it's beneficial to everybody. So why wouldn't they just build it for me and not use it, and they never even had the discussion with me.
And the gentleman here talked about dynamic pricing. These big operators should have a dynamic pricing model that they can give you, not that you should pay for.
For us, I can't comment on other software, and there's some great products in the market. Our goal ultimately is to provide UK operators with the best software product that will help you to grow your business. And we only launched, I brought our first customer on 2 years ago. So it is still pretty, still early, and there's tons of stuff to come. We're innovating as much as we can, but our goal is to help operators to grow the business. And that's what we just stay really focused on. And, we innovate. We're just releasing tomorrow, we're announcing the release of this new product called 1 Minute Move-ins, which is kind of everything you need to package up a non-staff move-in. So somebody can turn up at your gate, book, pay, ID check, contract, get allocated a room and move in without anybody. So we're just as focused as we possibly can on helping people build the best businesses. And that's where we're going. And I hope it's like 2 years in, I think hearing you say we're a great fit for startups and kind of smaller operators is great. And my hope is that in 2 years' time, what we're saying is it's a great fit for the large operators in the UK and outside the UK too. That's where we're trying to take the business to.
We'll do this again in 2 years.
Do it next year, will we? Right, I think that's a wrap then. Thank you very much. I need a toilet. Thank you so much, because I don't know how you guys have sat through this all, because I love it, because I'm a soft story nerd and geek. I've loved it. But yeah, I appreciate all the questions. I appreciate your attention as well. And thank you very much, Dave, and thank you very much, Gavin. It's been awesome.